Okay, welcome everyone. Let me get the agenda up. We're doing today a deep dive on the Overwatch system, and it will be a little bit more expansive for some of the new users on that as well. But the specific topics today are the watch list alerts, talk about the basics of that, and how to turn them on, all the different ways to turn them on, etc. We will go over Overwatch geofence basics. Sort of the central concept of the Overwatch system is a geofence. We will talk about the default configurations, how to make sure you set those up before you start creating some. We'll talk about the alert configurations, the differences there and where those are, how to set up logging, how to turn on voice alerts, etc. We will do a quick, we will create a quick around your home location and demonstrate that. And we'll do also some demonstrations of the geofences with, circular geofences around specific locations.
Saber 3 on ground.
I should turn those off until we get going. And then we'll also do a custom geofence where you click around the map, which I think is super cool. Just was able to pull that feature in the last few weeks. And then we will talk about importing and exporting of the watch list. And of course, we can do Q&A.
Saber 3 on ground room.
All right, so you can hear Monkey going off in the back. Yesterday, the source for the voice alerts went offline for about 35 minutes. And that was right in the middle of the demo. So that was unfortunate, but we got them going today, so it's going to be great.
Saber 3 on ground.
All right, so I'm going to turn those off and let's get into, let me turn off the geofences. And first we're going to talk about the watch lists. All right. And let me make sure I'm following our formats here today. So a couple quick notes before we get into it. Feel free to unmute anytime and get my attention if you want to ask a question. You can also pop those questions into the chat window, and Ren's going to help me track those, and we'll cover as much as we can. I've did a quick check. The mouse size is okay. Everybody can see my massive mouse floating around the screen there. Okay, how about readability of what's on screen? Do I need to make the UI larger, or is that readable for everybody?
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
awesome.
Readable.
Awesome. Thank you, Steve. All right. Cool, cool, cool. All right. So I'd ask you to go ahead and mute everybody, mute yourself so we don't get any background noise while we go. And again, if you want to ask a question, unmute, get my attention, and we'll go from there. Okay. Mike, welcome. I see your massive setup there. Very cool.
This is home.
Oh, to be so lucky. I love it. That's cool. All right, excellent. Okay, so here we are. We're in SkyGlass 2.0. We have, I'm in watch list mode, what I call watch list mode. I've got watch list open, and I have the watch list in an auto refresh. Distinction that I don't have the regular loading in an auto refresh. It's just the watch list. Does everybody know how to set that up? Is that familiar to most people, or should I cover it? Okay, so let me cover it. So if we look at the header of the watch list, let me make it sort of single, let me make this even bigger. All right, massive mode. Okay, so if you look at the header of the watch list up here, we've got a first few buttons. The first button is a manual reload. So this will force a reload of the watch list. And then the next one is to turn on and off auto refresh for the watch list alone. Okay, so this is again how you can kind of, instead of having to load traffic on the main button stack over here, or the auto refresh, which is this second button here, you can turn on auto refresh for the watch list. And then when that's enabled, it'll turn green, obviously, and then you get this little timer countdown clock image that sort of shows you what your, how long. And again, anytime you're in auto refresh, whether you're watch list mode or the standard auto refresh, you get this auto refresh slider, which determines the, pacing of that, how often it's going to auto refresh for you. All right. The watch list, just as a note, the watch list, depending on how large it is, it does, load pretty quickly. But if you were to put that at like 1 second, probably wouldn't keep up if you've got 3,000 like I do in the watch list. All right. So I like to keep it around 15 or more, depending on what you're trying to do, 15 seconds or more. Okay, so in the watch list, if you're familiar with 1.6 or the older version, we used to have a button stack, an auxiliary button stack on the top. That's now moved to the side. So I'll activate that so we can talk about what we're going to do. So watch lists now have a new feature where you can turn on an alert for an aircraft. And the alert means that when it changes state in some sense, meaning it's now online for the first time, meaning it's kind of out of the hangar. If it is off ground, if it's taken off, meaning it's flying in some way. If it is back on the ground or now off radar, so to speak. Those are the sort of the four states. And this is sort of an industry standard, something I'm more recently come to understand is an OOI, OOOI, which means out, off, on, and in. And so I kind of like to think about it as out of the hangar, off ground, on ground, and then back in the hangar. So that's the OOOI. And so when you get these, when you turn on alerts, you'll basically be getting, off ground and on ground alerts in the list. So how do you turn those on? As you can see in our watch list, we've got we're in sort of the regular display mode here. We've got the aircraft label. This defaults to the hex code, but this is editable. You can change this if you want. And then we've got the current call sign and then the type that's been reported. And then we've got a couple of icons. The first one that you want to, pay attention to here is the little warning with an exclamation point. That is the alert. So you can turn this on and off per aircraft by clicking on the button here. You can turn the entire group on by expanding the group buttons, exposing those, and then there is a button with the same, icon on it. And keep in mind, this doesn't just turn on the alerts for the aircraft that are on station right now, meaning in the auxiliary button stack, this top left button, this will display only the aircraft that are flying versus if I turn this off, it's going to reload. And then I'm seeing all the aircraft that are even not on the ground, but are in the list, right? So I like to keep this kind of as compact as possible, especially when you got a massive list. Turn on the only show me those that are flying. And then you've got the sort of more compacted list. So as I was saying, when you turn on a group, it's gonna toggle all of those group on, whether they're flying or not, everything in your watch list for that group, or you can turn them off like that. Alternatively, you have a button in the auxiliary button stack, and this is watch list wide. So this will turn on those alerts for everything in your watch list. And I would say use this sparingly. Get to know the alerts before you do anything like this. If you've got a huge list, like 3,000, and you turn that on, you're going to get bombarded with alerts. And if you've got voice alerts turned on, it'll just eat through those credits really fast because you've got hundreds that would be alerted. If we did that for right now, we'd get 142 alerts, right? First time, because we got 142 aircraft on station on our watch list, meaning airborne. All right. So I would say turn on, as you're getting to know alerts for watch list alerts, turn them on by aircraft or by group until you get a feel for it and understand what's happening. And then you can, go nuts. So any questions at this point? We're a 5x5, Lima Charlie, all good? Good. All right. Russ, welcome. CC Powell, welcome. See some new faces. Okay, cool. So let's just do it. I'm going to turn on the alerts for AWACS by the group, just so we get a couple. It's in auto refresh mode, so we should get alerts pretty quickly here. I'm going to collapse the C-17s. Oh, I got voice alerts turned off. And that's okay. So let me bring up the alert panel, and we'll talk about those configurations as they apply to the watch list alerts. So in the alert panel here, we've got a few buttons at the top. The first one is the speaker. This will give a tone for an alert if it becomes, if it happens and it's added to the list here. So the alert panel obviously we've got a list of all the alerts that have been triggered, okay? And when they're a watch list alert, they will show up with their call sign, and then what the alert is. This one is a takeoff alert. Nova was a takeoff alert as well. So keep in mind, if you've turning on the alert for the first time, it doesn't know its previous state. Okay, so it's gonna, regardless of where it is, like these guys are probably, it's 30,000 feet. It's not taking off necessarily. It's been flying for a while, but SkyGlass doesn't know that, and I haven't built an algorithm to kind of do that distinction. So anytime a new aircraft is added, if it's already flying, you're just going to get a takeoff alert for it immediately, just because now it's sort of on radar from an alert perspective. Okay. I'll also note from the OOI, the OOI, those are determined through thresholds of airspeed mostly, unless it's a rotorcraft or an airship. Okay, something that can go very, very slow. Oh, no problem. There we go. Turn that on. Back to the OOIs. So these are done by threshold of airspeed by aircraft category. Okay, so all aircraft are broken down into about a dozen, 10 or so main categories: light aircraft, heavy aircraft, fast movers, high wake vortex, that kind of stuff. It's a FAA or ICAO standard. And what I did was I determined kind of the mean or average speed thresholds for these aircraft, meaning if they're below the stall speed, then they're on ground, right? If they're in that window of, below their takeoff rotation speed, but, still less than that, then they're going to be, taxiing kind of thing. If they're above their rotation speed, then they're going to be in an off-ground state. So that's kind of the quick way to determine it. For rotorcraft, we do it by altitude. Anything that's above 500 feet, AGL, it's going to be flying. If it's below, we're assuming that it's on ground. And in the future, I'm planning on making that editable, probably by aircraft. So you could go in and tweak exactly what the thresholds are for your aircraft. First, we'll do it by category, may do it by type. Haven't really figured out the UI yet, but that will be something that you will be able to massage for your purposes later. But right now, it's a fixed category or fixed by category right now. Okay, does that all make sense? Kind of more detail about that, but okay. Finally, online with volume. Already. No problem, Mike. Welcome. Okay. And just a note, Mike, I've already put the recording. You can watch this on YouTube later and catch the first 10 minutes. No problem. Okay, so back to the alerts. So we've got the alerts header here. We can turn on and off the sound. Okay, there's a distinction, a different sound for watch list alerts versus geofence alerts. The watch list alerts have kind of this gong, kind of a lower tone. And the geofence alerts are more of a ping, like a radar sonar ping. And you can turn that sound on or off if you like. The next one, the megaphone, this is what can toggle on or off your voice alerts. You can do that here, or you can do that in the configuration, which is that gear wheel icon. All right, so we've got voice alerts turned off right now. We'll go ahead and turn them on. I'm going to turn off the auto refresh just so we won't get hammered with it in case anything triggers. And here are some of the finer points on the alert options. So obviously you can toggle them on and off. You can also set the alert to be once for that aircraft, right? Meaning you won't get repeated alerts every time the auto refresh happens. And then we've got some options for the different voices. Right now we've got a female, a male, sort of generic, and then we've got a voice clone of Monkey in there. That's who I've it set right now. And you can test those out by clicking on the megaphone button next to it. So I'll do that now. Come on. I know the voice alerts were working yesterday.
Thanks for using SkyGlass.
There we go. Somebody changed to Lily and we'll get her.
Thanks for using SkyGlass.
And then you'll give a little sample of Curtis.
Thanks for using SkyGlass.
So we'll put it back to monkey for now. And I will be adding more voices later. These are, we just wanted to get some basics in there first. All right, moving on. So if the alert system is a Pro and Pro Plus tier feature, when you subscribe to those levels, you get a certain amount of credits per month included. If you're an annual user, you get like 10,000 up front. If you're a monthly user, you get 1,000 a month. And then if you burn through those, you can buy extra packs for them. Those are in the website store, and you can get right to it from this little button here, buy voice alerts. And then your balance, so you can check what it is right below. All right. So moving on, we also have one of the beta testers suggested that we turn on traces if any alert aircraft pops on screen. This is most effective or appropriate for the geofences, but I'll mention it here. So you can turn on traces. And again, that's going to be determined by the trace length that you have set. If you have traces on, you got this little trace depth slider here. Okay. And then one of my favorite features, we've got log alerts to file. So when you turn this on, if you haven't set up the location of where those get stored, you'll be prompted for a file save location. And then, so a little bit about that. So it's a CSV file, it's a comma separated file. You can open up in any text editor or drop it in a spreadsheet. And then you've got some just basic information, timestamp, what happened, whether it was an voice or a watch list alert or a geofence alert, the location, and just the detail about it. I'm totally open to, and this is, we can very easily add more information to that CSV file format. If anybody's is any interest or wants to know, have a different field in it specifically, just let me know, and we can do that. And so those are also automatically saved and iterated by day. So what I would do is I would create a folder for your watch list, your SkyGlass alerts, and then let them drop into that. And then every day, if you've got them logged, you'll get a new file for that day and the list in there, right? So the file won't grow, exponentially. You'll get a new file every day, and it'll have I can't remember exactly the naming convention I used, but SkyGlass alerts _ and then the date. Okay, cool. Any questions at this point? How are we doing? Everybody understand? I got a thumbs up from Sean. Thank you. Thumbs up from DTM plus. All right. Okay from Russ. Okay from Rick. Good, good, good. Okay. I got a big nod from Tom. Thank you. Okay. So moving forward. So we've covered the configuration panel. Only other one to note here is the burn button. And basically this just purges the list. Okay, it just clears the list that you've got on screen. Okay, I will note that new alerts will be at the top of the list. You're welcome, Ren. Yeah, that suggestion. I think it was a great suggestion. So they pop to the top. All right. The only other thing I'll show is the distinction between the watch list alerts have a color border, and there's a distinct color for each phase. If it's off ground, it's going to be green. If it's landed, it'll be, I think, a magenta, a sort of a purplish color. And then the geofence alerts are yellow. So you can kind of scan when you're looking at your alert list what kind of alert it is based on that. All right, if you don't want to read it. All right, all clear. So let me clear that list. I think we've covered the watch lists in pretty good detail. So unless there's any questions about that, I will move on to the Overwatch. All good? Moving forward? Okay, good, good, good. Here we go. So I'm going to turn off the alert list. I'm going to turn off my my auxiliary button stack, close my watch list, and we're basically burned right now. All right, so we're at a pretty clean state. Let me clean up my user interface a little bit. We don't need labels. We don't need class. We do need the pro level, and we can turn that on and off and do a burn. So we've cleaned up that as well. Okay. And let's see, let's get a meaningful home location. Somebody want to give me their home, just drop it in the chat. Preferably something with not super rural, so we'll actually get some aircraft return. And I'll show that, I'll do that in specific. All right, first one, come on. Give me a location. Dox yourself. Manchester, New Hampshire, perfect, okay. Let's see here, let me copy that, paste it in here. Hit enter, and now we're in Manchester, New Hampshire. Okay, so something I covered yesterday, but part of a nice piece here. You'll notice in my home location chooser panel, we should come up with a better name for that. The location chooser panel, which is activated by this big target in the auxiliary button stack. Okay, for anybody that's a beginner, we've got your main button stack here. This is the auxiliary button stack, and then depending on your settings, there'll be a bunch of new stacks and things that'll kind of accumulate off to the left here as you turn things on and off, as you've been seeing right now. So we've got the Pro, which is here. We've got that enabled because that's got our Overwatch button. And okay, so turn on your home location chooser. I dropped in the name, hit enter, and that popped me to this location. I want to call your attention to the bottom here. We've got a from map scale indicator, and that is will automatically keep your search radius around, and you can see this big green box here. It will keep that around, basically around what your zoom level is. So if I zoom in on the map, you'll see that that keeps around my location, and then you'll see the search radius automatically update. And it does its best to calculate what the edges of the map are, come in a little bit, and then draw the search radius by that. Okay. So I'm going to pop in here nice and close. Let's do 35, 50 miles. Perfect. Okay. So again, we're in Manchester, New Hampshire. And what I'm going to do now is let's create a geofence, a circular geofence around my home location. So and you can put in your street address here. You can put in, an intersection, a city, town, whatever is meaningful for you. It will take any kind of input. I will notice though, and this is an API that I go call. It's, I think, reverse geocode from Google, and they must have been working on it because things like DCA, the DC airport, most airports you can access by their 3-letter code. If they don't pop that way, you can put the K in front of it if it's a North American, or US airport, and it'll pop or it'll match. And things like DCA won't match right now, and I have no idea why. I don't have any control over it, which is a bummer. But anyway, so you can put in anything you want here, get around your home location. Now let's turn on the Overwatch. I'm going to clear my list just so we can start from scratch. All right. And you'll notice, I'll just cover a little bit of UI stuff here. You'll notice that if I grab these little 2 bars, I can undock the list from wherever it is, or that panel, and move it on screen somewhere. If I double click, let's say I can move this one around, move this around too. If I double click on that panel, on that icon, it'll redock everything. So let me do that now. Double click, boom. Puts that back. Okay, so let me minimize this so we can just have a good on-screen look. Just a little bit more. All right, so first I want to set up or configure the Overwatch defaults first. So before you start setting up stuff, just know that the upper limit and the lower limit altitude you can adjust. The default is a distance of 5 miles around my home location, and then upper limit of 2,000 feet. Just kind of a, what's in my close AO kind of thing. But again, this is editable. So we can make this, let's make this 5,000 feet. Now let's make it 10,000 feet. And let's do 15-mile radius, and we'll keep the lower limit at ground level. Okay, and then we close the panel. Oh, let me cover the defaults while we're in here. Okay, so we've covered the Overwatch defaults for the quick select, which we'll make up in here in a second. We've got some other alert format defaults. You can do bearing to target, which takes the center. In this case, if you've got a central, geofence around your home location, you are this, the center of that. It will give you a bearing, a distance, and then their current altitude and what they're doing, if they're ascending or descending, climbing or descending. All right. Or you can just change it to give me the call sign and tell me what geofence it's busted, where the geofence that it's entered. Okay. So those are the sort of two formats. And again, open to suggestions. If you have a different format that's meaningful to you, give me the feedback and I can, code that in. All right. Looks like Mark's, he's looking at me. Okay. You can see that. Yeah. I'm looking at my own screencast. Okay. So we're going to set it at, let's do bearing to target first. And then you've got a little example of what it's going to be. So bearing traffic 180 at 2 miles, 2,500 feet, or 2,500 feet descending. Okay, so, and while we're here, in the same way that you can move your watch list from device to device through the SkyGlass cloud, you can do the same thing with your Overwatch list. So that's these first two buttons. We got a cloud pointing up and a cloud with a down arrow. So if you wanted to move it from computer, this is how you do it. Set up your Overwatch lists, push it, go over to your other device, pull it down, and they should match. The Overwatch lists that you set up are persistent. They're saved to your computer every time you make an update. So the next session, they'll be right there waiting for you. You can also save them out to disk and then, or file, and then import them as well. So this would be a kind of a roundabout way to pass them off to a friend or a colleague or somebody else that you want to share your geofences with. Eventually, this will have an interface like we have for the watch list of shared watch lists, right? We're going to do shared geofences, so you can publish them, post them for others to see, and then download others as well. Okay. All right, covered that in excruciating detail. I'll move on unless there's any questions. All good? All right, good. So let's go ahead and I'm going to close the configuration panel. And I will open up the create Overwatch options. And we've got 4 options. First one we're going to do, we've just set that up. We're going to do home location geofence. Push the button. Boom, we've got a geofence around our home location. You'll also notice, make this a little bit larger, that we've got labels turned on for the Overwatches or for all airspace right now. And then if you get close to that central point, then the Overwatch or the airspace will pop, highlight. That way you can kind of have a distinction of what you're hovering over. This has the impact of the details, which when we get a few set up, we can see that in a second. Okay. So let me move this over a little bit and let me I'm going to pull some traffic and see, we'll get some updates. So I got sound on, I've got voice alerts on, Overwatch is set up. You can see it in the Overwatch list here. We've got type of Overwatch that it is, the location, and some detail about it. You'll also notice in the list, in the Overwatch list, we've got a couple things. We've got an icon. Let me move the camera around. We've got an icon. If you click on that, it's going to pop to that center point of the list. This is how you can kind of quickly move your camera around to the different geowatches or geofences. There is a count here. Since we haven't loaded any, the count is 0, but this will accumulate and show you the count of aircraft that have been triggered in that Overwatch area. And then if you want to remove this one specifically, click on that to burn it, and then it'll remove. There's a safety check here. You click it. Like I'll do that now. Say, oh, do you sure you want to do that? Say, no, I don't want to do that right now. Okay, so let me load some traffic.
Traffic bearing 200 at 7.8 miles, 1,625 feet level flight. Traffic bearing 124 at 5.3 miles, 6,550 feet level flight.
Okay, cool. So I noticed we had a little anomaly here. They popped on screen and then they left. So this is a good time to do some troubleshooting. So I think while we had our watch list up, I had toggled something to be in isolate mode. And we'll check the type list panel as well to see if any of those are set up into isolate mode. And so if you have that and it's sort of hanging out there, you'll see aircraft pop on and off. So this is kind of how you know that. So let's check it out. Yep. So we got missile defense. So I must have had a fat finger moment here and push on that. So this is how you clear it. Very easy. Pop the extended auxiliary button stack for this. And then this button here resets all groups to their normal view. So what we've done here is I've accidentally set a group to be in isolate mode. So it only shows that aircraft or that group of aircraft, right? So I'm just going to easily click on that. It's going to reset all the different groups from either hide or isolate, turn those off. And so I'm going to collapse all the group. And now we can see that the, I think it was missile defense was in isolate mode. Now it's clear. So now we're good. So now if I turn that off and turn my Overwatch back up, we see it again. Load traffic.
Traffic, bearing 178 at 4.4 miles, 225 feet level flight.
Perfect. Okay. So I think a worthwhile distinction here to talk about is when we talk about the alert format, right, which is in the configuration panel, the bearing to target doesn't give you the call sign. So if it's important for you to kind of know what the call sign is, I would move it to Overwatch busted. And then let me turn that off and clear and run it again.
VXP6, 4 inside of Manchester and H.
Cool. All right, so you can see it's going to read the geofence area. So you might want to be cognizant of what you're putting in there because it's going to be announced. One update or one upgrade that I haven't quite done yet, but this is Ren actually had this suggestion, is to be able to edit these after you've created the geofence. So that'll be coming in a future release to be able to go in here and tweak the altitudes and the name so you can adjust it if something wasn't set up correctly. The only way to do that now is to start from scratch, kill it, and then recreate it. Okay. So, all right, so that seems clear. Any questions before we move on to the next creation method?
Yeah, Sean Coombs has got a question in chat. He's asked about what version is this to purchase in on basic, I think.
Right, so thank you. So there are 3 tiers now with SkyGlass. There's a basic version, and then there's a Pro and a Pro Plus tier. The Overwatches are Pro and Pro Plus, okay? There will also be a light tier later, which will have even more just super basic kind of features. But right now, those are the tiers. I covered those in yesterday's pre-flight briefing, which will be posted later. But you can go to the plans and pricing page, and there's a full breakdown of the different tiers and all the different features in each one. Answer your question, Sean? Good. Okay, cool. Love those questions, so I can take a little break there, wet my throat. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. Might as well, I'll leave this one up, and I'm going to click on the add again, and let's do from central position. So very similar to what we just did with the home position, just in one UI. Okay, so this would be a way to do it multiple times if you know you're going to want to do centralized round geofences. Okay. So let's do it again. So let's give this so I'm not really familiar with this area. I see Nashua is on there. So I'm just going to type in Nash, and I'm going to change this to Nashua. Is that SHUA? All right. And I'm going to hit enter, and that should pop me to that central location. So now we kind of just moved our map over a little bit for demonstration purposes. And then let's change the airspace radius. So we've got basically, 0, which is meaningless. I should change that, to up to 100 miles for this one. So let's do something like 25 miles. And we'll leave it at 5,000 and 0. Click create. Now you can see we've got another geofence set up. All right. And so again, central location, radial around it with a radius, pretty straightforward. And so you can reuse the data, keep adding different ones in here, keep clicking create, and then to get out of this, click on close, and then that closes the interface. All right. So now let's say we kind of want to edit this a little bit and create something else. So we can draw a custom area around the map. So you first want to get your map set up to where you want to be, or the area that you're going to want to cover. You'll enter a label. So let's do, this is the deep dive demo. Let's just do deep dive demo. And again, this will be read out by the voice alerts if you have them turned on. All right, we'll do 10,000 feet, do 0, and now let's just start clicking around the map. So be careful because your first click's going to register, right? So this is why you want to have your map set up, because you can't drag the map around normally once you're in this mode, right? Because it's going to start registering. And so your first click will, let me get in closer here. I will note you can rotate the camera because that's a right click, right? And you can use the scroll wheel and not affect your geofence that you're creating. You just can't click and drag the map. That make sense? All right, so let me demonstrate. Okay, so first click is going to give you a little pointer. I will notice if you keep your mouse down, you can move it around. Okay, there's a little trick there. But anyway, you're going to get a little target to show where you've clicked. Okay, that'll become meaningful when we want to close that up. And so for this purpose, I'm just going to click around the sort of basic and mimic what we've already got. Just because having two overlapping geofences, I mean, it may be useful for your use case, I'm not sure. But let's do that. And let's just create a little pop out here, thinking that maybe this is an approach path or something. Come back. And then once we get close to our opening position, that target will show up, so you know that your next click's going to actually complete that geofence. And then boom, we've got our geofences. Now you'll also notice we've got little latitude and longitude readouts of every place that you clicked, in case that's meaningful for you. And then we've got, really want to call your attention to this upper limit slider. So let me do this. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to pop the Overwatch up, and I want to remove these other two. So I'm going to pull these two ones that we just created, just so we can see our primary one a little bit better. There we go. All right, so now we've got the clickable geofence that we've just kind of popped around, and then you can grab that height slider, or it's not a slider, but it's a kind of a handle, and then adjust your upper limit, and you'll see that that's updated on screen at the handle location, and then also in the custom Overwatch readout. So we'll get this kind of close to, depending on your zoom level, it's kind of hard to get it right at like 10,000 for, let's say, but we're close enough now. All right, and this is, adjustable until you hit make Overwatch. So right now we're just in, creation mode. Let's make it 15,000 feet. We're close to it. Oh, almost had it. All right, and then when we click on make Overwatch, you'll see it changes a little bit. All the detail goes away, and we've got our geofence set up with a label. Clear? All good? Excellent. All right, so let's, I'm going to close that interface and pull some traffic, and we'll just demonstrate.
KAP 419 inside of deep dive demo.
You've got a couple more questions in chat.
All right. My question, can you do a geofence by speed or travel time, or time travel? So not thoroughly tested, but yes, I believe this will work in time travel mode. I don't think there's a distinction there. Can you do a geofence by speed? I'm assuming you mean if something breaks a speed threshold. Is that the question, Chris? And feel free to unmute yourself and give me some detail if you want to talk. Mr. Hunter? So to answer your question, no, there isn't a speed threshold. It's just the geofence. If they enter that area based on the latitude, longitude, and position, then they've entered the fence.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, it's more along the lines of like the second question I put in there. If you have a plane left from a destination, from an airport going to a certain destination, but you've lost contact with it, do we have a time, make a circle, see what kind of geofencing where we look for it?
Interesting. Okay. So let me read this back to you just so I can make sure I understand. So you're tracking an aircraft and it's sort of gone off radar and you want to set up a geofence around that location?
Right. Like from the time that you lost contact with it and say, okay, it's been gone an hour. What's my geofence look like at the time it left and the speed it was traveling, that type of thing.
Interesting. Okay. So yeah, nothing like that exists right now. It's an interesting use case. I'll have to think about that. Let me noodle that a little bit. Yeah.
I'm just thinking about planes that disappear, they go down, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you're looking for like a search radius based on speed. Okay.
100%, yeah.
So that would be, so let me just work the problem here. So we'd have to know what the speed is of last position. That's easy to pull, right? As long as there's coverage in that area from a feeder and they've been on there, we can identify that and pull that data. So then we'll want to know what type of aircraft and what the glide ratio is really, because then you'll kind of know if their engine cut out, best case scenario, engine cut out, they were able to glide. What's that sort of minimum glide distance? And then I would probably push it out from there. And that probably, I don't know, that could probably be averaged by class of aircraft. So yeah, I think we're kind of getting there, right? And that would give us our radius, and then you could kind of extrapolate.
Like it, yes. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Good suggestion. I love it. It will probably make its way into SkyGlass at some point. So
awesome. Thank you.
Give you credit, Mr. Hunter. We'll call it the Hunter fence. Awesome.
Nice.
Cool.
CNS 145 inside of deep dive demo.
Okay. Okay, cool. It's interesting. I've actually started a little strategic partnership with a group, TS Reports. I think it's called TS Reports, and that's what they do. They have a feature or they've got a little. I don't even know what you call it. They go out and monitor the NTSB database for changes and report on crashes that happened the day before. And they're working with, we're going to try and set up, we're going to be setting up a deep link into SkyGlass to pull up their last position. So I think this would be an excellent augmentation of that to do sort of, here's their last position, and then here's sort of the geofence around it for, monitoring or, checking stuff out. Very interesting use case. I love it. Okay. Any other questions? Good question, Sean. Agree. Okay, perfect.
Aircraft 0 Lima Whiskey inside of deep dive demo.
All right, so I want to, as we're getting some voice alerts here, let me tell you what happens with the voice alerts. If the voice alert, if the aircraft being alerted.
Aircraft without call sign inside of deep dive demo.
Perfect. So I'm going to turn off auto refresh so I can talk through this. So we got some great examples here. We've got an aircraft without a call sign. You just heard that. NA. We've got an aircraft with a call sign that matches their registration. Okay, this is the tail number, November 700 Lima Whiskey, right? So what I do is, if it does a comparison of what the call sign is to the registration. And if they're the same, then we use the sort of ATC format, which unless you're a pilot, you probably wouldn't know. But when the ACC is calling your aircraft, once you've got this communication established, basically they just give you the last 3 letters of your call sign or of your tail number to tell you, to get your attention, right? So when I was flying, it was 1 Juliet Charlie was my aircraft. So So I've kind of mimicked that same thing. If the registration and the call sign that it's broadcasting match, then we just use the last three of the registration or call sign, in this case, 0 Lima Whiskey, right? If it has a call sign, like Delta Flight 342 or whatever, be DAL 342, then it's going to try and read it, right? I did this mostly for the military aircraft because those sometimes have a more meaningful call sign. The commercial flights, it's going to be not as important, but like, the Reach aircraft or Venus, one of these, PAT 22, whatever. So in that case, it tries to read the call sign. Okay. I will admit it's a little weird because the call signs, when you look at it, you're like, oh, Reach, RCH. But when the AI tries to read out RCH, it's whoosh, kind of a thing. So take that into account, but that's how the voice alert is converted to what's actually spoken. All right. Okay. So I think most people are going to want to be doing the clickable geofence, and then probably the give me my AO quick, the quick ride around that. At least from all the users that I've talked to, that's kind of what I feel like the main focus is going to be. So as an example, let's work another problem. One of my favorites, we got a lot of border stuff happening, right? So let's go create a geofence around the Texas border. What do you think? Yeah, we'll do that. Get some head nods. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first burn my list. So in the Overwatch header, you've got a burn button, which is going to clear all of them. All right. Remove all. I'm going to burn our alerts. Okay. You can close the alert panel. When another alert pops, it's going to pop back up again. Okay. So while we're doing this interface work, we can do that. All right. I'm going to change my home location. And let's put in Tejas. Here I am. I'm going to zoom out a little bit more. How are we doing on time? 45 minutes. All right, we're doing good. Doing good. All right, so I had feedback from yesterday. This map is probably not very easy to read with the border. So I'm going to change the map style. All right. So you guys, you tell me, is this blue? I feel like the national border is a little bit stronger there. Is that strong enough? Is this one any better? So we've got blue, gray, green. Green's really hard, very low contrast. This is a little bit better. It's also going to depend on the zoom level. So let me zoom out a little bit more. Maybe that's going to be a little stronger. Or we can go with the satellite view. This is probably the one we want. Yeah? What do you think? Okay. Yeah, I think so too. This is easy to read. All right. All right, we got some aircraft out on the corner here from our old one. So I'm going to click on burn, clear the aircraft. All right. So here we go. So we got a nice view of our southern border here. And Texas probably isn't exactly the focus. We got a big border here. So I'm going to create a geofence around this whole area. All right, so I'm going to click on the plus sign in the geofence or the Overwatch panel header. Click on draw custom area. And then I'm going to reduce my interface a little bit so I can see what's happening, rotate a little bit. And now I'm going to start plunking around. So, I'm an artist. Before I was doing this, I was at an animation studio. So I like to put a lot of dots because when you extend the height up, you get a vertical spline right on each of those, or a little wall distinction. So I think this visually looks a little bit better. That's why I'm going to put a lot of points in here. So I'm going to start here, click. So we'll get a lot of lat longs. Let me make those a little bit smaller, and I'll hug the border here nice and tight. We need some good elevator hold music here. All right. And now I'm going to rotate around a little bit so we can get this northern side. Bada boom, bada bing. Go a little bit longer. And so again, you know, the little cheat code here is you click to make your point, and then since you have control, you can drag your drag the map around. Okay, you can always rotate, but you can't. The click is going to register as a point. And I actually find this kind of useful in that in the watch list, the one that Monkey pulls out, and I've seen some other users, and this is easy to find in the database. You can pull out Department of Homeland Security aircraft, right? Just by searching on the owner operator of DHS Department of Homeland. Homeland will probably pop those nicely. You can build. They've got a number of helicopters that hang out in this area. So if you wanted to monitor that, this would be the way to do it. All right. So again, as I'm getting close to this final or initial location, my green target pops. I click there. Now let me mouse around so I can see that height handle. There it is. And we'll pull that up. So we got a bunch of splines here. It's really hard to see the with all the lat longs, but here we go. All right, let's get that. Oh, 100,000 feet. So you'll notice this is a good point, good thing to notice. I've got my relative height slider down pretty low. Let me show you that. You see that? This is down pretty low. So relatively speaking, this height is, 10,000 feet is going to be way down here because our relative height slider, height adjustment slider is so low. If that was so high, it would have a different relationship, right? So keep that in mind as you start pulling these around, that it's determined, the height is determined where your relative height slider is. All right, so let's go 100,000 feet. So we're really going to capture anything that busts that limit for this area. I'm going to say make Overwatch. There it is. We got a nice clean southern border geofence. How cool is that? All right. Got a thumbs up. Good stuff. Okay, so now that we've done that, I'm going to close and let's export this guy. So I'm going to save it out to disk. I've got a little Overwatch folder set up already. And so we're going to say this is Skywatch Conus South.geojson. And it's going to be saved as a GeoJSON file. We'll hit save. Okay. So now I could email this to the group. And you can import it. Okay. So let me show you how to import. Very simple. It's probably not worth demoing, but what the heck. So I'm going to close that. I'm going to remove it. Open. And then it's going to say, all right, do we want to, just like a watch list, do you want to add this to your list or do you want to replace it? So it doesn't matter now because we kind of have nothing in our list. So we'll just say append. And then there it is. Open. There it is. Bada bing. And it grabbed the label that we put in before. I could have changed the label to something more meaningful. But anyway. All right. And let's see who's rocking this area. So let me close the configuration panel. I'm going to move this out of the way. Let me make this a little bit smaller. And open up the watch list. And I bet we get some DHS guys in here. We may have some fighter people too, some trainers and stuff, because they like to be in this Texas area, but we'll see.
Nova 62 off ground. Aircraft 9er Tango X-ray inside of deep dive demo. Aircraft 3 9er Charlie inside of deep dive demo. Aircraft 5-7 Echo inside of deep dive demo.
All right, so I'm going to turn off
Aircraft
the voice
1
alerts.
X-ray Romeo inside of deep dive demo.
And can you all still hear me okay? Am I coming through? Okay, good. I just muted my computer while these were being read out. Okay, so I wanted to call your attention to, in the same way that you can pop to the watch lists, I'm sorry, the Overwatch center location, you can also pop to the different aircraft. So as they show up in the list, like we want to go check out who where 5 X-ray Romeo is, we click on that. And then if we zoom in, we can see exactly where he is. Everybody follow? All right, cool. All right, and I think this one was, as you can see, the difference. This was just a watch list alert that was still on, not a geofence alert. So you can see the difference here. We've got our watch list in green and Overwatch busted in yellow. All right, and we are at 1 hour, 55 minutes. All right, good. Let's see if he's still talking. No. All right, good, good, good. Okay, so I think we've covered everything. Let me go through the agenda and make sure I've covered it all. So we talked about watch lists, the alerts for aircraft. We talked about the UIs. We talked about the Overwatch geofence basics. We covered that. Configuration of the defaults, the alert configuration, voice alerts, and the logging. We created a quick one around our home location. We created central ones around a central point. We did a couple of examples of the clicking around the map. We did an export and an import. I'm ready for Q&A if anybody's got any questions. Download Monkey's watch list, no problem. Let's do that first. Okay, so one of my favorite parts of the new 2.0, shareable watch lists, all right? So let's work that. Example. All right, so I'm going to burn my watch list, which is in the auxiliary button stack here for the watch list. Click on that. Be sure you want to clear it. Say, yep, we're going to clear it. Now it's burnt. Okay. In the watch list auxiliary pop out, you've got these 2 icons here, and you'll notice we've got our pop-up help here. I'm going to make that a little bit larger so you can see it. So we've got share your own watch list. So basically you're posting it to the SkyGlass community. This is only available to see inside of SkyGlass, right? It's not going anywhere else. I mean, unless somebody downloads it and then, goes offline with it. But then this is the interface to see all those that have been posted. So let's do that. Download a shareable watch list. Let me move that out of the way. All right, looks like Westy's got a couple in here. He didn't use a, I hadn't foreseen this one. No label. Oh, all right. Well, that's all right. So we got Monkey's watch list is at the top here. It's got 20 downloads. We got 5 likes. So the button here on the left is what downloads that one from that's been posted. Click there. It'll give you the same warning. Do you want to add this to the current list or replace it? It doesn't matter. We'll hit add. And boom, we've got his whole list. And you'll notice it gets everything, the different states that he had. He's got a bunch of stuff hidden from the time he posted it, right? So you may want to clear some of those toggles out. Again, that's very easy. It's in the auxiliary pop out here. We want to clear, reset all views. Click on that. And then that's going to go through all the groups and turn off the isolate hide. And then reload the list. All right. And, I hadn't thought about this, but this is also going to take alerts. So be mindful. You may want to, before you start loading or have Overwatch, how are we going to do that? Well, yeah, before you load, you want to toggle on and off the alerts. And I guess the only way to do that meaningfully without triggering a bunch is to turn off the voice alerts. So if you're going to be doing voice alerts and don't want to, burn through a bunch of those credits unnecessarily, you'll want to turn those off before you load up somebody else's watch list. I hadn't thought about that. We'll trap for that in the future release for sure. Does everybody understand what I'm getting at here? When you share a watch list, if you've got the alerts on for all those aircraft, when you download them, they're going to be on. First time you run them, it's going to trigger off all those alerts. So I'll trap for that, but be mindful about that until I get that worked into the code. Okay. All right, did that answer the question? Download Monkey's list? Cool. All right, next question, where to see this Zoom later if we join late? So I'm gonna post this on YouTube. I'll also be on the AVR Labs website in the Learn How. There's the video section. Personally, I don't like the option. The video section navigator is not as good as the one on YouTube. So if you want to get all the different trainings, go to YouTube. The SkyGlass app, I believe, is my handle there. But it'll be posted probably by Monday. What is today? Today's Friday. Yeah, probably tomorrow, Sunday, Monday. All right. Any other questions? And I'm happy to do. Yes.
Yeah, I
go
had
ahead.
a question. I was just reassigning an aircraft, and there's like duplicates with a G dash in front of it from the assigned group list that aren't showing up in the watch list.
Okay, so help me understand.
Okay, so I'm reassigning an unassigned aircraft in the watch
Oh, I got
list,
that. Got it.
and in the drop down for the assigned groups, there's duplicate entries now since I imported a list that's G dash and then the duplicate name, including the unassigned item.
Okay. So you've changed the label name.
No, I imported a new list
Mhm.
and I didn't change anything. And now only in the drop down when I'm reassigning, there's duplicate entries with
Oh,
the G dash in front of it.
okay.
Like
So let
if
me
you,
see. Yeah. Okay. So you do this, and then you do this.
no,
Okay.
for individual aircraft, I'm sorry, for a single aircraft.
All right. So let me expand this again, and then edit.
And the drop down there. And in
Ah.
there, I have ones that are G dash that don't show up in the main list in the screen, the watch list, but they're in right there.
Well, that's very interesting. All right.
And I think it's because it looked like it happened when I imported it.
Yeah,
Using
but
it.
so yeah, it's a great question. Let's figure this out. All right. So I'm going to collapse all the lists so I can see what we're seeing here. And I don't want to make this hidden anymore, but that's all right. So it's interesting. So there's no G dash group names, but when you go into an aircraft, sorry, let's do that. Stay with the unassigned. Boom. And then edit. And then we've got G unassigned. Interesting. Okay. I think this is a bug. I think you found something is completely missed me, because in my internal code, I know that when I'm building lists and stuff, I put a G in front of something as a group name, as an aircraft, whatever. So I think this is just a bleed over from when I'm building the drop-down list.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
So
then my
great
other
catch. Thanks, Tim.
and
Awesome.
then my other question is when you import a list and you use add or integrate or whatever,
Mhm.
and they would have a plane in two different groups between the lists. What happens to the plane?
Right. So I do filter for duplicates. It does,
Okay.
when it's importing, look for it. Is it already in the list? And if it
Mhm.
is, it gets moved into this new group. So whatever you're importing will
Mhm.
override what group it's in. So it moves it if you're importing it into a list. I'm sorry, if you're importing a watch list, and that aircraft already exists and it's in a different group, it will be moved to that new group that's been imported.
Okay.
All right. Let me make a quick note here of this issue so I can go back and fix it. All right. So we're in the AC edit, watch list, aircraft edit, group, drop down. All right, that's very interesting. All right, group drop down has G dash and then whatever. Okay, cool. I ought to have some sort of reward when somebody brings a bug. Like, you get a free cup. No, I'm just starting. Okay, cool. Thank you, Tim. That was a good suggestion. Good find. Awesome. All right, good. Any other questions? Anything in the chat? Well, we already covered that one. All right, good.
One of the things I was going to say is that another possible function for the geofencing would be like if you're planning a multiple destination trip or you're a new flyer and you want to know your range and places to land and that kind of stuff. So just trying to give you ideas for its usefulness.
Yeah, say more.
So, and also I
Limit
think
of
Google
the
has some of those functions
geofence.
built into their.
Hold on, Leroy. Hold on, Chris. You just describe that again, just so I get a clearer understanding.
Yeah, you're going to get new pilots. They're learning how to fly, and if you want to cater to those kind of things, you could do like I need to go from here to LA from San Francisco, and I want to plot my trip out and do travel time geofencing so I know where I can stop and have lunch and that kind of stuff, and just kind of estimate things out. Or if I wanted a trip to from here, San Francisco to Arizona to Denver, and look at things I might want to go do by using geofencing.
Okay, so again, we're creating geofences around position data on some level. Okay.
Kind of like you did on the border there.
Yeah. Chris, are you a pilot?
No, I have done a little bit, but
okay. All
I
right,
don't like
cool.
heights.
Yeah, no problem. So I guess what what I'd like to do is I think a good start to that functionality would be an export of your flight path or your planned route into SkyGlass. And
There you go.
I haven't done that yet. I've done the other way. Like if you use FlightAware in the cockpit and you've got the trace of the track recorded, you can import that into SkyGlass actually and see your track. But we're kind of doing the other way of like preempting that. It is interesting because I have the ability to because of the airport information, like that whole database system, I can grab all all the airspace points. So you could build your flight path within SkyGlass if you wanted to. I haven't built it out yet, but I'm the same. There's a possibility of doing that. And so I like where we're going with this. So then it would be put in an airspeed, and then give me some like boom. Here's a geofence around like or even just some give me 50 miles around this point.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. I'll have to think about a good interface for that. Okay, awesome. Thank you, Chris. You bet.
Problem.
All right, Leroy, I think you had a question. Yes, sir.
Yes, is the lower limit on the geofencing, is that ground level or sea level?
It's going to be ground level. And actually, it's neither. And this is the thing. If you're a pilot, you understand how complicated this can kind of be. But everything is normalized in flight space in barometric, which is not ever. It's not consistent in that sense, right? The minute it's changing every minute. You understand what I mean by barometric pressure, barometric altitude, baro altitude?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So actually, it's built on baro altitude. So I can see there would be probably some obscure cases where the reported altitude is below sea level from the aircraft. Super hot day or whatever that is, super cold day, you're going to get a barometric altitude reading that's different than ground. So no, it's reporting baro altitude. So barometric pressure altitude, if it's within that limit, within that geofence, lat long determination, then it's going to get triggered. Yeah. Make sense?
I was thinking more like tracking helicopters where they may be at ground level, but at 700 feet or something like that.
Right.
Not-
Right. So again, it's going to be, I would just, if you want to capture stuff that's at the ground, then I'd leave it at 0, even though the altitude at the destination is going to be above, in Denver, it's, whatever that is, several hundred feet up. But again, what it's triggering is on the reported barometric altitude of the aircraft. So out of the transponder, they're going to be reporting that they're at a certain level altitude, and that's based on barometric pressure. And then that's going to be the trigger area. So, 10,000 feet is going to change geographically every day, but it's reported from the aircraft. That's the trigger point. Good
Thank you.
question. You bet. Any other questions? Feel free to AGL versus MSL. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So neither. Baro. It's a baro altitude reading. Yeah. And I've actually thought about this a lot, and I haven't found a good, because there would be a way to convert, right? To get the barometric altitude, find the location, get the barometric pressure at that altitude, and then determine it. Because not all aircraft transponders will give you their AGL. You know what I'm saying? But I haven't put enough time in to really solve it. And the problem is to get the data of the current barometric pressure at that location, because it's going to change every minute, but if you had that, then you'd have all the pieces to actually do the reverse altitude calculation. If any pilots are out there know how to do that quick or have a data source, I'm open. It's probably available in some sort of weather app or weather API service to get barometric pressure at a location. I just haven't put in the time to figure that out. Oh, I can get the ground altitude at that long. That's easy. That's already built in. Yeah, need that for sure. Right. It's just calculating what, if they're flying it, because again, when you're, if the aircraft is above 18,000, so all aircraft then switch to a normalized barometric pressure, right? So there's some anomalies in the flight world. But anyway, the point really is that all the transponders are normalized to baro altitude. And so that's my starting position. And then I've got to kind of do calculation from there. Anyway, good question. All right, anything else? Are we getting ready to wrap up? Any other questions? Happy to go over some basic stuff if there's anything else. There is an anomaly for folks that are doing, oh, I didn't actually talk about this. This is a great one. Okay, good. All right, so let me set you up and then we'll talk about this. So I'm going to close my watch list. I'm going to close the Overwatch. And when you close the Overwatch itself, it's going to turn off your alerts, right? Just so you know that. All right, so let's get to, let me go to Miami Airport. And I'm going to go way in. I'm going to do a burn so we clear all the traffic so we don't have any extra data out there slowing us down. Actually, no, this isn't the best example for one of the problems I wanted to show. Let's do KDEN. Let's do Denver. I hate this airport, but that's okay. It's a big swastika on the airport surface here. So what would be another good example? Where are you, Ren? You're in what's that location? You're in Washington?
Seattle, probably Seattle. That's busy.
SeaTac, right? KSEA?
Right. Yes.
That's it. Let's go to Seattle. Where they sell, what is it? Is it more sunglasses or more ice cream than anywhere else? Sunglasses, I think, is the oxymoron. Like you wouldn't think.
Yeah, it's sunglasses. You always forget where you put them. The next day you need them.
That's it. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in nice and tight here, and I'm going to load airport runways. It said the runways here. This first big button. And so I haven't done this on this computer. This is a great example, or with this version. Actually, I purged them. So if you haven't downloaded them yet, the first time you try, it's going to actually download the file, and then it will deserialize, read it into memory, and then we'll be able to render those runways. All right. So now we're going to be loading them into memory here or into on screen. There we go. And you'll see, this is what I kind of wanted to show you. They're way off the top, right? So all the geofence, I'm sorry, all the airspace vector graphics, I guess we'll call them, they obey the height adjustment slider. So pull those down, and now they're going to be anchored to the ground. Okay, but it's good to know that, like, if you raise that up, it's gonna obey the height adjustment slider. So it'll stretch that out over the top of the ground. Okay, so what I wanted to call your attention to is a couple things. First, we've got I'll make this larger. And let me clean this up a little bit. All right, so we have our airspace list here that we can, turn things on and off. And in this has a couple of options, and these affect the geofences because the geofences are 3D airspace objects, right, in SkyGlass. So we've got the labels. You turn the labels on and off. Okay, and then you've got a detail pop-out window. And if you hover over one of those areas, you get the detail. Okay. I'm so glad we got into this. I totally forgot that I should have added this to the agenda. So point is, anything that's in airspace that's been rendered, you can make into a geofence by simply right-clicking on it. So you got to get it highlighted, right-click, and then we say, oh, make this a geofence. Say, okay, let's do a geofence right there. Boom. So now it's, we got a bunch of old lists in there. Let's do that. And redock. All right. And now we've got this Seattle Airport runway as a geofence. This is actually an unintended feature. I didn't plan this. I just built that any airspace that you could create or that was rendered, you could right click on it, make it, and this works. If something touches down, it'll pop an alert. Super fun. So let me just demonstrate this in the same way. Let me pull Class D, Class C. Well, I'm just going to generate some controlled airspace in 3D. So downloading those files, just so I can demonstrate right-clicking on any airspace that's rendered, you can do that. So again, you can do this with a class airspace, BCD, that's in here already. Uh-oh, got an error. All right, so let's do this. I'll look at my logs later. Okay, where was I? So any class airspace that's been rendered, you can create a geofence out of. Even the airmets and sigmets, those are kind of those virtual ones that are weather related in the sky. All right. All right, so now we've got some airspaces rendered here. We've got some lower D. Let me get the top the labels on so we can kind of see them and pop around a little bit. So you can see like this there's airspace there, or we got this larger class B, this sort of entry point. And again, right click, create geofence, and then you'll see it turns yellow. And now we've got it added in the list. So other ways to add geofences, right click on an existing airspace. So MOAs, I think, would be interesting to do that with military operation areas. TFRs, you can do that with TFRs as well. Not that people would be, hopefully we're not going to get a lot of pops with the TFRs, but it is interesting, there's a lot of military aircraft in the TFR around DC. So that would be something interesting to monitor if you wanted to, or you could create your own, to mimic Mar-a-Lago, sort of in my neck of the woods here, just up the street. All right. Making sense? Any questions? So glad we thought of that.
What is a CFR?
No, TFR, temporary flight restriction.
Okay.
TFRs. You know what a TFR is, right?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. I can quickly show that. That's kind of fun and easy. Let me pop out. Let me do a burn. Let me reorient to CONUS. And go out a little bit more. So we get the whole country. There we go. And let's see the TFRs. Yeah, sadly, the TFRs take a little bit of time to load because I have to go out and get every NOTAM and then filter out for the TFRs, but they still do their job.
So Washington, DC would be a TFR, wouldn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
And you see it. So here we go. We got all our TFRs loaded now. And again, I don't think anybody's been able to, I think this is first time you can, in any program has been showing, you know, this kind of airspace in 3D, and really you can kick it off to the side and see immediately, you know, where the action is. And again, with the little detailer, let me clean up my interface. There we go. You've got hover, and then you've got the detail over what that is about. So here's the couple over DC, or that's New York, I guess. Yeah, this one's over DC. I know that this one is a little bit higher. The data is not there. They've updated this in a strange way, so I'm still working on this little piece. But what I thought was interesting is this one that's hanging out over the. This has been more of a persistent one. See how high it is over this, over the that part of the border there. If I bring it down to the ground, you can see it more where it is. Let me use the overhead viewer, pop there. And then you can see there's exactly the area. I will notice we've got in the Pro and Pro Plus, you've got an extra slider, and that slider affects the thickness of the lines of any 3D airspace. So including the Overwatch areas are going to be an airspace that you create. That's the thickness of the line there. Let me change the map style so it's a little bit easier to see. There we go. And now you can see I make that nice and thick. You can see the difference. Yeah, right over from Juarez down the southern border.
You want a little TFR tip?
Sure.
Just a quick one. So when I'm out in the air, like when Trump's over his golf course in New Jersey, you'll see a TFR over his golf course just for 15 or 1,200 feet. It's just to prevent drones. That's all it really is about.
Interesting.
So we can hover over it and shoot it, but it was really just to keep the drones out. So if you see a TFR that's really low like that, like 1,000 or 1,200, it's just to keep the drones out.
Good tip. I like it, Mike. Thank you, sir.
Take a tip from Mikey.
I like it. Yeah, let's see what this one is. Yeah, interesting. I didn't know that there were so many types of TFRs. I thought they were, you know, VIPs. Obviously, the permanent one around, the permanent temporary flight restriction around DC. But there's a bunch. Space operations, obviously, that's a real easy one to determine when you kick it off to the side. Let me get these out of the way. Not that this one is one, but well, let's see. The one over Tucson area.
Yeah, usually presidentials are usually pretty up there in height. They
Yeah.
get pretty high. VIPs are only to about 6,000 or 4,000. They don't care about the VIPs, but presidentials usually 30 nautical miles plus at
Right.
least maybe it could be 18 or, you know, I mean, you can go through them with that pilot. You can go through them. You just got to, you know, do the right thing, or maybe you're not, but you have to do the squawks and flight plans.
Yeah. But there are TFRs for rescue operations, flight for, I'm sorry, fire operations, you know, when they're doing
Sure.
that
Yeah,
kind of
if
thing.
they don't want you over there, I've been in the air during like train crashes, and if someone's Y is up to it, they'll call and make it a TFR while we're in the air. So we in the air, we have to watch all the time because
Wow.
usually we're in controlled airspace. They're saying, look, you gotta get out. It's gonna go TFR in like 2 minutes. So, but
Yeah. Right. You're in contact with ATC most times, so they're gonna
yeah,
tell-
usually with that point we would be. But sometimes some of the fires down the Pine Barrens in Jersey have gone hot and no one told us, and we just happened to find out on the way there and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, this is interesting. Space ops area, but it's pretty low. That's surprising. Most of the space, the launch ones are super high. I don't want to
Maybe they're just trying to prevent drones or low flights or low, snooping in too close to it. Like they'll do an engine test or something like that, but they don't want you over.
Ah, That's probably it. Yeah, good point.
In case it goes boom.
Good point. Cool. All right. Well, we covered TFRs in good detail. We got some great detail from Mike. Appreciate that. Thank you, sir. Awesome. Any other questions? Might be a way to get the ground altitude from, oh, we already talked about that. Okay. Cool.
I have a question about TFRs. Over Redstone Arsenal, it's restricted airspace, but I never see a TFR.
What's the area?
Redstone Arsenal, Alabama.
And that city?
It's Redstone Arsenal's Army and NASA facility.
Right. So I'm just trying to get the general location because I don't know. Huntsville. There we go. Huntsville, Alabama.
HSV is the commercial airport.
All right. So let me do this. I'm going to do a burn and I'm going to zoom in, get about 50 miles around it, which is probably good. All right. And so what I'm going to do is airspace restricted, prohibited, national defense area.
Yes.
So because it's permanent, it's probably not a TFR, but it's in a restricted airspace. And hopefully we should get that. Oh, I'm getting another error. All right, I'm not seeing it. Well, that's interesting. I figured that would be there. There's actually sort of very few I can show you when you load up again. So when you're doing any airspace or any of this TFRs, airmets, sigmets, any of the airspace, it's going to be restricted by your search radius. So if you're wanting to see, a wide area, you got to get your search radius out. That's why I like this map from scale, so it automatically adjusts. So we'll go back to CONUS, and what I'm doing here is demonstrating. Yeah, so let's look at the restricteds in all the different areas. So there's not that many permanent flight restriction ones, and you can see there's either these are all prohibited, and then I'm not seeing any restricteds. I'll have to dig into that. Looks like we got a little bit in Canada too. Yeah. Oh, one over the Bahamas too. Anyway. So yeah, not sure. Let me I'm gonna write that down. So this is Huntsville. And you said this was what's the name of the arsenal again?
Redstone Arsenal.
And then you said it's Army?
Yes.
All right, I will look into that. Let's fill in the bit. All right, good. All right, good questions, everybody. Very good. So we're at 2:30. We're about to be at the time limit. I'm happy to stay if there's more questions, or we can wrap this up. Any other questions? Got a blast. Thanks for everything. You bet, Mike. Thanks, sir. All right.
The CONUS is Continental United States?
Correct.
Okay.
CONUS. Yeah, so there are two sort of default favorite home locations that are included with SkyGlass, or that ship with it. CONUS in Europe, just so there was something in there so you could use. It's very easy to set up your own. I'll just cover that real quick. So what is give me a city near you?
Cincinnati.
Okay, I'm going to butcher this. I'm a bad speller. Give it to me.
CINCINNATI.
Okay, so set your home location, have the favorite locations panel up, which is governed by this button here. Okay, that turns it on and off. And so once you have once you have a home location set, very easy, click on the plus sign. Boom. Now you've got your home location set. And then you can edit that name by clicking on the little pencil. It becomes editable. So we can just make it like Sin. All right. And there you go. And then if you want to remove it, click on the X, that'll kill it. Remove it from the list. And so in the favorite home locations list here, there's a distinction between clicking again on the home, on the word, that will rehome you. Clicking on the target simply zooms the camera over. So we'll just do that with, you can see I'm just zooming the camera. A rehome will actually reload everything and move your search radius, because the search radius is always around your home location. So DC, you see how the box shift. Let me do this. Let me turn off the thing and bring the box down. And now you can see the difference. Versus a zoom, which doesn't change the home location. Search radius.
Yes.
All right. Okay, cool. Well, we covered a lot today, guys. Super glad everybody was here. I think we get, and I'm gonna have to add to my agenda list the ad from airspace. From airspace. Okay, great. Awesome. Well, if there aren't any other questions, let me follow my script here. We've recapped the topics a couple of times. Yeah, if you have any trouble, need to reach me, best way to do that is go to the avrlabs.com website. On the bottom left, you'll see a need help button. Click on that, and that creates a chat window. And you can, that's the best way to reach me. A lot of people are in the habit now of trying to email me directly. That's not so good because it gets lost with all my personal mail and my big email box and out of the CMS, you know, the customer management system of the website. So please go to the website, hit the need help button, and then you can send me a message directly, and that goes right to my watch, my phone, and I'll, you know, respond as soon as I can, assuming it's sort of within extended business hours, East Coast time. You know, 10 p.m. on a Sunday, probably not going to answer till the next morning, but anyway, you get the idea. All right. Any other questions before we finish up? I'm going to stop the recording and we'll call it a day. Really appreciate everybody's being here. Good stuff.
Thank you.
You bet. All right. I'm going to stop share and we'll close the meeting down. All right, everybody. Thanks so much. Have a great day. Cheers.